Hey! How are you guys? I'm doing a different presentation today. It's about, moving air through onto your lungs. I mean, always keep in mind that fantastic lung yoga. I think I called it fucking lung yoga the other day. A few people were like, "Did you drop the F-bomb in your video?" I was like, yeah, because if you think about it, that acronym, right? FLY, fantastic lung yoga. Or if people think you're crazy, like a lot of people think I'm a little bit, what's that guy doing? Oh, he's doing fucking young lung yoga. Anyways, yeah, my brain likes to work on problems. So I've been giving some thought to this whole flattening the curves. And what you guys are looking at is, getting that curve to flatten out. And I'm thinking of, well, okay, how can we really start thinking about crushing the curve? Okay, I know it's a little bit out there for a guy in his backyard to be telling you all how to treat your pandemic, but there's a couple of things that occurred to me lately, especially with all of my colleagues, all of my old friends, nurses and doctors and everyone who are struggling to get adequate protective gear right now. I'm the guy, recently you may have seen a post out there on Mark Bradley that said something like, would you expect a fireman to go into a burning building without adequate protective gear? We should stop frying nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists and everybody else who works in the hospital. But this whole idea where you're trapped in a box, basically, right, which is a great big building, and you have very little airflow. The air handlers that they have in these hospitals, I'm sure, were engineered with the idea that everybody would be able to keep all of these contagions away from them with proper protective gear. But since, I've seen some stuff where hospital administrator, assistants are cutting up office supplies to try to make masks for people. I think that's beautiful. I mean, so if I could be, on that level of, okay, let me fuck around with whatever I can find and try to figure out some stuff for you guys. I don't have my big bag of red mulch here today, but I do have my laundry basket, and I'm going to talk to you about moving air through a building. Okay, so maybe some of you don't know, but before I was a nurse, I was in construction a fair bit and looking at a bunch of stuff. So I've got a kind of a varied background, and I'm a very variable dude. So the idea for me at this point is, remember what I was saying about decreasing your chance of consolidation, okay? Consolidation is kind of like an old school idea for a lot of the old contagions out there. A lot of this stuff now with, viruses and the way they kind of produce a viral load in your tissues and then kind of embed themselves and reproduce in your tissues. There's some overlap when you want to think about it in the early stages of big breathing, moving, disrupting that kind of tissue, making it stretch, making it move. Don't let it sort of settle in and get socked in with a viral load that's really getting into your tissues, right? People are doing this with their mouths right now. This is my lemon and warm water drink. It's not hot boiling water, it's like boiling water to here, warm water, and then some lemon. Lemon, warm tea, cleaning out my mouth. I scrape my tongue in the morning as well, by the way. I don't know if you guys want to look up tongue scraping. Get a little bit of Morton salt, the sea salt stuff. If you've got some sea salt, not the iodine or iodized salt that you've got at home, and make yourself a little solution of saline. Like, you know, if you've got saline at home, great, but you're gonna need a lot of it. And then you put a half a cup of that going. Get your fingers around in there. Really work the insides of your mucous membranes. Really kind of like move that potential virus that's sitting there around, and get the saline up so that you're able to kind of like flush things through, and then swallow or spit, whatever you want to do, to move that stuff out of your area. And then I'll cup my hand, pour a little bit of that stuff in, and just snarfle up a bunch of it. And it makes me cough, and I'm cleaning my nasal passages, the areas around my sinuses. I'm lavaging, I'm cleaning those areas with a saline solution. You'll see people with a neti pot. It's like a little teapot, and they put it in one nostril and they pour it through, and it comes out the other nostril. You do this, I do this right before I jump in the shower, okay? So I'm cleaning, trying to get as much of my nasal area and my mouth clean in the morning. A lot of the stuff that sits in your body as toxins kind of accumulates on your tongue overnight. So while you're sitting, you get in there, clean it out in the morning. It's like taking a couple of Sudafed. And I'm basically here to talk to you about buildings right now. I'm not going to go into a great big long video, but I'll come back with another video on why you don't want to do stuff like Sudafed or Robitussin or you know, any of these kinds of products that slow down your breathing, especially like narcotics like codeine and a lot of cough syrups will depress your breathing so you can sleep at night, okay? Remember, you don't want stuff consolidating in your lungs. If you look at yesterday's video, or the last video from a couple of days ago, that stuff that sits there, if you're depressing your breathing and you're sleeping 8-9 hours and you're all happy, ooh, I got a great night's sleep. No, you don't want a great night's sleep, okay? It's not like most of us are going to work tomorrow. If you can wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and then sleep again for another couple hours, cough, move the stuff in your lungs around. Don't let stuff sit there and consolidate or, you know, accumulate a big viral load. So think about skipping a lot of the stuff that slows your cough down. What you actually want is your cough to be up and you to be getting rid of this stuff, moving it around in your lungs. Remember our friends here? Pink corona, yellow corona, keep those guys moving. So now I'm going to talk to you about keeping these guys moving, not in your lungs or not in your upper airway, but in your hospital, in your buildings, okay? Now, some of this stuff, it looks like to me on a couple of the reports out there, it's a band of weather that's happening across the border basically between Canada and the US and across Northern Europe, where a lot of these outbreaks are happening. It's a certain conditions that are right for high humidity and cooler weather. So, you know, we may not even be getting a lot of this stuff down here in Florida. I mean, I guess it's happening because everybody's traveling in different areas, but conditions are better in certain areas for getting less contagious, right? So here I go with my goofy talk about what's laying around in my yard and my house. Over here, I'm going to show you, for starters, this, you like my beard in here? This is what I just came up with a little while ago. I posted on YouTube last night to say, hey, does anybody have any ideas? Like, could we run a thought experiment for really, like, not just flattening the curve, but crushing it? Like, really, what's going to make it, you know, what's going to make this really a lot better for us? the idea that we have these hospitals, great big boxes, right? So we're thinking inside the box in a hospital, with ventilation systems that often, are marginal. I've worked several different ERs. I can't tell you how many times we were worried about some guy with some big contagious thing going on, and which are the negative pressure rooms again, right? And everybody's like, oh, yeah, the negative pressure stuff hasn't been working for a while. Forget about it. Or, room 2 is the only one we've got right now. We're supposed to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but room 2 is the only one that's working right now. So again, if you're a hospital administrator and you're feeling a little incompetent at this point, I don't want to be a hospital administrator. I think you guys, for what you're doing and the constraints you have, right, working in a profit business, you're doing what you can, but you got to think now big scale and what we're going to do to actually change things quite a bit here for the picture of people working in your hospital who don't have the adequate protective gear and who are basically getting fried by this virus that's just sitting there, creating more and more and more of a viral load for your facility, okay? So you may or may not be able to see this very well. I'll post a picture of it on my Facebook feed. By the way, my name is Mark Bradley, and I said that in the beginning. I'm just saying it again right now, so that when you see stuff from Ridiculrider on YouTube, that's Mark Bradley on Facebook. Okay, I've got a few different identities floating around. We'll figure that out later. So ER, ICU at a certain end of the hospital, right? Certain floor, certain level, certain section. That's where most of your bad, really heavy duty bugs are going to be. And when I say bugs, I mean viral loads, right? So you need to get that viral load in the air and in the unit cleared out by doing some big breathing, like I was showing you on the other video. But you're going to get your hospital to breathe now. So it's going to involve popping a few windows out of your hospital, maybe punching a couple of holes in your walls to position exhaust fans in the right areas to get air coming in through areas that are less sick, that are bringing you good, clean air, and out through areas that are more contagious. So basically, you don't want to draw air in around the ICUs and then drag it all across the rest of the hospital, who isn't that sick, and put it out another side of the hospital and take all that bad air and shift it through the hospital. What you want to do is bring in air from the better parts of the hospital that aren't that contagious, aren't that sick, don't have as high a viral load, and move it close to the ICUs and close to the emergency room and get it out right there, where not only are you taking all of this less sick parts of the hospital, less contagious parts of the hospital, bringing in air, pushing that air towards the ICUs and the ER, but right before you get to the ICU and the ER, you got great big exhaust fans taking the air out, just outside of the ICU, just outside of the ER. Those exhaust fans are set up so that they are pulling that fresh air in across the main part of your hospital, and they are pushing it out in an area that is already considered a higher contagious area, right outside the ICU, right outside the ER. But now in the ER, they're pulling in some fresh air as well, and they're bringing that fresh air across the ER, across the ICU, and it's going out and still out those exhaust fans. Or you can do this, if you've ever seen these great big industrial fans. I'm not a ventilation expert, right? But I fake it. What we're talking about is just getting airflow over your people who are working without the protective gear. So they don't have the protective gear, right? And they're sitting there in this environment that's high viral load, high viral load, high viral load. It's kind of like, if you think about it, if you go into the grocery store and you're sitting there picking out an avocado, and some lady comes up beside you and sneezes or coughs or whatever, and you're like, right? You're sitting there going, keep your virus away from me. Well, when you're a hospital worker in a box, you got to live in that box, and there's like 20 people around you now coughing and sneezing. So your exposure to the viral load goes up, 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 up. You don't have the protective gear to keep it out of your lungs. What you got to do is drop that viral load, and you drop the viral load with airflow, okay? I'm ripping this off, by the way. This is like an old Florence Nightingale trick. So, anyways, I'll take a picture of this. I'll put it up on my Mark Bradley Facebook, and then any ventilation experts out there, any like contagious disease guys that can start to think about, well, okay, we don't have enough masks, we don't have enough protective gear for the people in the hospitals. How can we modify, right? Like, how can we go a little garage freaky on certain areas of the hospital to get airflow moving through there? You get that airflow moving, you're going to disrupt the viral load. And that's what I'm talking about doing in your lungs with all the, fucking lung yoga. Just like, see your people in the hospital, do your big, hold it for 4 seconds. You've seen me do this yesterday with you guys, okay? So breathe, big breath, move your air around in your lungs, keep your lungs moving, make sure they're not getting socked in with that viral load in spots. Clean your mouth, clean your nose, drink the lemon water. There's a whole bunch of different recommendations out there, I think now, like on, aside from the obvious hand washing and all of that, you're trying to limit the amount of load going into your lungs, right? Or sitting in your lungs. Get yourself a sit down with some of your hospital administrators. I'll guarantee there's going to be a bunch of them that are going to tell you, oh, we're not poking holes in our hospital. We can't do that. And what you'll do is, like, a lot of nurses have husbands or boyfriends or whatever that are like cops or paramedics or firefighters. And you just kind of request a little meeting with that guy out by the ambulance bay. Now, I'm not, right? Let's get this straight up front. I'm not advising violence here. What you do with that guy in the ambulance bay is say, hey, buddy, we're firefighters. We poke holes in buildings all the time. Okay, we're going to pop a couple holes in. We're going to get you set up with some ventilation so there's air moving through your building, so you're not keeping everybody in a box with a high viral load. And you might be a little stern about it. I'm okay with that. The thing is, nurses, most of them are women. They won't speak up. They'll bitch. They'll be like, I can't believe these idiots are not, fixing this problem for us. Why do they expect us to work in these conditions? So if you're a guy in that area with a lot of women who are working and you can speak up on their behalf, it's very appreciated. I bet every bit in my career. And look at me touching my face. So anyways, get yourself clear with the people that are operating these hospitals, that if they are so incompetent that they have not foreseen this and been able to like manage this, right? That they're out in left field on this stuff right now, that they're going to have to start thinking outside of the box. And what I'm saying is, I'm going to show you in a minute here with my laundry basket, how you make a hospital, not look quite like Swiss cheese, but if you poke a couple of strategic holes in it, get some big industrial exhaust fans going, and blow some air through that hospital, like really move it. What's happening right now is all of this overhead ventilation stuff you guys have, it was designed, thought of in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. Everybody's working with that same kind of like low geared ventilation, which is okay. It's there for a reason, but it's probably wasn't expecting this kind of viral load and these kinds of conditions where nobody has the proper protective gear to look after themselves. So when you get nervous about holes being poked in your hospital, there's also these great big industrial fans with ducting. And ducting, I'm talking about like, it would look like a city sewer, right? Like a 4-foot or a 6-foot bit of ducting that you can run into the hospital in certain spots, keep that intake for that ducting going, sucking air in from all of the outside areas around, letting fresh air come into the hospital. Goes in that intake, which is well inside the hospital, and then that ducting travels outside to an outside fan. So you leave, like, the ambulance bay doors open, and you run that ducting another 50 or 100 feet out the ambulance bays, and you point it away from where the ambulances have to pull in, so they're not getting all of this virus in their face. But you blow that air out of your building. You're sucking in clean air from one side, blowing in bad air from the outside, from the other side. Okay? If you want to use the ducting, if you're nervous about poking holes in your building, personally, I think we should poke a bunch of holes in hospitals. I think it'd be fun, right? Like, get the firefighters, get your city engineers, don't get too many bureaucrats involved, because it'll take you 3 weeks to do it. But just figure out, okay, where are the strategic locations that we want to bring good, clean air in, and we'll carry that air across our sicker patients and get rid of it quickly before spreading it out to the rest of the hospital where there aren't that many sick patients, right? And then that discharge of that air will also be handling some of the cleaner air coming in across your less contaminated areas of the hospital, and that you can use the same exhaust fans. If you think about it on different levels of different floors of the hospital, get this stuff going so that you're moving air. Now, what's this going to do to your heating costs? It's going to really boost your heating costs, okay? Because you're going to be heating a building now that's getting ventilated pretty drastically. What's it going to do to your air conditioning costs? It's going to boost your air conditioning costs, because now you're air conditioning a building that's basically got a bunch of holes in it. But if you want to consider that, I don't know what you guys are facing as far as liability for incompetence at this point, but what you've done in this country is neglect. Nobody around the world's completely ready for this stuff. I mean, maybe Taiwan, but when you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, we live in a modern world where we know about pathogens and contagions and all of this stuff that's going to happen to us from time to time. How could we have been this underprepared? And the answer is, you're idiots, okay? I don't mean to get into any kind of political discussion right now, because I think I could go on and on and on. But the bottom line is, smarten up. Open up some spaces in your hospital to get air moving through that hospital, so that the viral load that the people working inside the box don't have to deal with a high viral load. You can bring it down with airflow, okay? Here's what we're talking about. Good air. This is a new fancy ball. I mean, I've had every line around. This is like small air, okay? So small air goes in these small holes, strategically place small holes in the side of your hospital. Big air is coming in from, like, you're opening up doors and ambulance bays or stuff like that, right? But you're moving in some good air, lots of good air is coming in and going over your people and decreasing their viral load. And then somehow you've got a fan going, and I don't know why I bothered to plug this one in, but I did. So the fan's going, and it's blowing air in a certain direction to keep it moving in a strategic way. I'm going to take that phone off here in a second, because I think, hang on. So, a second, there's a way to do this.